Hello everybody, I'm Steve Farhood. Welcome to Charlo vs. Castaño 1, round by round, during which we take a look back at this dramatic battle from the AT&T Center in San Antonio back in July 2021. I was Showtime's unofficial scorer of the fight. After each round of Charlo Castaño, I'll examine both my card and those of the official judges. We'll include some punch stat analysis as well.
Since Floyd Mayweather faced and defeated Canelo Alvarez to unify two 154-pound titles.
Mayweather! Combination for Hurd and down goes Long!
The championships in this division have been a revolving door, a roulette wheel, and roller coaster. The belts have been strapped on by future Hall of Famers, longtime titleists, veteran contenders, and emerging stars. The disruption at the top is the product of a highly competitive and talent-rich weight class. Whether the sanctioning body calls the division super welterweight or junior middleweight, it has been the recent home of boxing's most dramatic and topsy-turvy results. Now we are finally on the verge of clarity in the 154-pound division. Jermell Charlo, the unified champion, fresh off his dominating performance in capturing Jason Rosario's belts.
And in stunning fashion, Jermell Charlo unifies 3 titles.
I love you.
Now has his sights set on becoming the first ever undisputed 154-pound champion in the 4-belt era.
I take my opponent all the way deep in the ocean, and I drown him.
Undefeated titleist Brian Castaño is standing in the path to history. Emboldened by his ring record and inspired by family tradition, the Argentine has his own ambitions for glory.
Es la oportunidad de mi vida y no la voy a dejar pasar.
Tonight, history will be made, and we'll hear the greatest words in boxing. The winner, an undisputed champion of the world. Coming up next on Showtime.
It's a big fight with a big fight atmosphere. It is beautiful, it is brutal, it is boxing at its best. What a fight!
...2021 was a big bounce-back year for boxing. One of the reasons was this matchup of 154-pound world titleists on Showtime Championship Boxing. WBA, WBC, and IBF champion Jermell Charlo versus WBO champion Brian Castaño. Castaño, from Buenos Aires, Argentina, was 17-0-1. 5 months before, he had won a championship belt for a second time. More impressively, his most noteworthy result had been a draw with Erislandy Lara, a longtime champion and arguably the most difficult 154-pounder in the division. Charlo, from Houston, was 34-1. He was coming off one fight in which he avenged his lone defeat, and another that gave him 3 of the 4 major title belts. This was Charlo's chance to separate himself from the pack and prove he was the world's best at this weight.
It's showtime!
The referee for Charlo Castaño was Hector Afu of Panama. The judges were Tim Cheatham of Nevada, Nelson Vasquez of Puerto Rico, and Steve Weisfeld of New Jersey.
I want a clean fight. Necesito una pelea limpia. Choque en guante. Top to rope.
The fight exceeded all expectations. From July 17, 2021, here is Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castaño, with Mauro Ranallo, Al Bernstein, and Abner Maris on the call.
Boxing history. We are on the cusp of a coronation at 154. Who will walk out of San Antonio undisputed champion? The bell in round one, Charlo and Castaño.
Yeah, if you're Jermell, you want to establish the jab right away. Get that distance, get the range, get familiar with it, because you know Castaño's coming in to close the gap.
Castaño, while I mentioned he averaged 84 punches, sometimes he will take the first round to kind of figure out, how can I jab my way in? What can I do to get myself in without being in harm's way? So you may not see that many punches early. He has to rev his engine up to get there.
Castaño dethroned Patrick Teixeira in dominant fashion for a 154-pound title in his last fight in February. He's a two-time titleist at this weight class, just like Charlo, who unified the 3 titles against Jason Rosario. Charlo's trainer, Derek James, says that Rosario has more power, but that Castaño punches more. He tries to outwork you.
Yeah, that may be the biggest understatement in history.
Although he expected that one of the tricks that Charlo talked about having for this fight would be that Charlo would try to pressure Castaño in the early going. And we have seen, Abner, in the past when Charlo tries to lead the dance, well, he is paid for it. He's a very effective counter-puncher, and of course, has the great equalizer, the one-hitter quitter.
He is, and he does that. But now, you know, you can tell that Charlo's just basically looking for Castaño to make mistakes. And that's a good thing. You want to do that as well, because Castaños will make the mistakes, especially coming in, because, you know, he always tries to find a way in, but he gets, he throws wild punches and he opens up.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far. I got you, but he's pretty responsibly defensive. I do agree with you. Charlo was baiting him there, and I think he's going to bait him at certain points on the rope.
Especially the inside punches.
Yes, and no question, I agree with you. Charlo can blast him with one punch and a counter punch.
45 seconds left in the opening round, and that has been the surprising statistic. The fact that Castaño is such a buzzsaw, high-volume pressure fighter who is still surprisingly defensively responsible as he lands that lead right hand to the body of Charlo. And Charlo again collecting the data, wanting to utilize that jab. 30 seconds left in the opening round.
Listen, Castaño's going to try to outwork you. He's not doing that right now. Obviously, it's the first round, figuring out Jermell. But, you know, if you're Jermell, you don't want to outwork Castaño. You don't want to go down to that level. You be smart. You wait for the right moment.
Well, no one has thrown as many punches per round in terms of a Charlo opponent than Castaño coming into this fight. But this is a completely clean sheet and a cautious start to this encounter.
The opening round was very quiet, with both fighters doing more studying than fighting. Castaño had a slight edge in power shots, though most of his punches were only glancing blows. Charlo scored cleanly in an exchange. His output, however, was largely limited to tentative jabs. The fighters landed only 10 combined punches. I gave this close round to Castaño, as did Cheatham and Weisfeld. Vasquez scored for Charlo.
There's Jermell's older brother by a minute. Jermell, 160-pound belt holder, round 2 of this battle to determine the first undisputed 154-pound champion on the men's side in the 4-belt era. You know, Castaño, the only blemish on his record, that split draw with Erislandy Lara in 2019, an entertaining and competitive contest. Castaño forced Lara to throw a career-high 825 punches. Charlo's never thrown more than 680 in a fight, and that was nearly 9 years ago against Deshaun Johnson.
Yeah, that is the question. Charlo 6-1 in championship matches, 5 KOs. He is much more of a power puncher now. Will he want to throw that kind of volume, or will he just pick the spots and look for the one punch that will turn things?
Yeah, Charlo has emerged as the emperor of efficiency, a more cautious fighter, but boy, he is definitely explosive when it comes to the way he likes to end the fistic proceedings, Abner.
Yeah, and he's really...
And here comes Castaño.
That's what I was just about to say. Castaño has some...
Oh, but Charlo countered him and clipped him in between these shots. And Charlo now unloading on Castaño. The crowd in San Antonio in fuego.
Counter left hook, so Charlo immediately is able to counter with a power punch.
And that is why Castaño wasn't going in there right away. He was trying to work his way inside.
A dangerous counter puncher with the perfect balance of speed and power. That is Jermell Iron Man Charlo. Al, you mentioned Castaño has been down once. That was in November of 2016. Came back to stop Emmanuel De Jesus in the 6th round after being dropped by a vicious right in the 2nd.
But he got right up from that.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, he's hurt. He was hurt here, and he's still hurt. And Charlo is kind of weighing how far quickly he attacks, but that left hook really hurt Castaño.
Mature, composed, and efficient attack from Jermell Charlo. 1-2 lands. Nearing 30 seconds left here in what has been a terrific 2nd round for Jermell Charlo.
And it's crazy because I think that Jermell is going to be more effective when Castaño becomes aggressive. And that's, you know, that's the only chance.
Exactly where the counter-punching comes into play.
And that's what Castaño wants to do, though.
And really a lot of observers, a lot of pundits felt it would come down to just how well can Castaño handle the vaunted power of Charlo. He tasted it early.
Round 2 was all Charlo, one of the easiest rounds of the fight to score. Charlo started with a 1-2. He added some jabs, and then it happened. After Castaño opened up with some wide punches, Charlo broke through with a left hook that staggered Castaño and followed up with a lot more. Castaño suddenly stopped his forward progress and was content to finish the round by cautiously setting up well out of range. Charlo landed about half the power shots he threw, and that'll win you a round just about every time. Without hesitation, I gave the 2nd round to Charlo, as did all 3 of the official judges.
Iron Man Jermell Charlo would love to rule the 154-pound weight class with an iron fist, but he's in with a double tough Brian Castaño, yet to taste defeat. But he has tasted the power of Charlo as we settle into round number 3, scheduled for 12.
And you know, we all wondered what would be the counter punch of choice. Would it be the straight right hand, the uppercut? It turned out to be the left hook from Charlo, and we'll see what the future of this fight brings.
The talent and depth at 154 over the last 5 or 6 years, they have organically held an unofficial round robin at this weight class, and it culminates with number 1 Jermell Charlo against number 2 Brian Castaño. The future of the sport needs to be more of the best fighting the best, like we are seeing here tonight.
Yeah, this division has certainly shown that. Now, here's the problem for Brian Castaño. He can't win this fight where he is right there. No. He's going to have to attack, but he's got to figure out a way to do it without getting hurt.
He needs to get underneath that jab, Abner.
Yeah, it's almost impossible, but, you know, you have to go for it. You have to go for it if you're Castaño. Just be really cautious, you know, go in there, land 2-3 punches. Don't try to hook as much with Jermell because, you know, we saw what happened there.
Patrick Teixeira is a top 10 ranked 154-pounder, held the belt before being dethroned by Castaño. Castaño overcame massive disadvantages in height in that fight. Not to say Teixeira is the same fighter as Charlo, but he's going to have to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And And it starts with the Castaño jab. He needs to double jab his way in without getting hit by a counterpunch and then putting himself in position where he can throw.
Yeah, and that was a perfect demonstration from Jermell that, you know, that's a perfect range he wants to have Castaño's.
Final 60 seconds. Workmanlike third round with Charlo working behind the jab, keeping Castaño not where Castaño wants to be, as we have said ad nauseum. Castaño needs to find a way to bring that two-fisted attack to the inside. But what? He has to navigate a minefield.
And we gotta acknowledge the level of fighting that Jermell has. I mean, it's a lot easier, or was a lot easier for Castaño to get in with the previous fighters, but with Jermell, he's having a lot of trouble.
Well, yeah, Charlo is such a strong power puncher, and he did it against Lara, who's obviously a top fighter, Teixeira, other good fighters, but Charlo's a different animal.
Yeah.
Charlo went to that jab to the body. We saw what happened in the 8th against Rosario. Now Castaño closing the distance, clips Charlo with the left hook.
Oh
he
my!
Charlo.
We only did that because you let him do that, right? You're trying to spill around, right? You cannot let him spill around. The jab is the truth.
Watching a tape of the fight, I was almost finished with the third round when I asked myself, how in heck could I have given this round to Castaño? Then I saw why. Charlo dominated most of the round, scoring with his jab and keeping Castaño at a safe distance. But with 17 seconds remaining, Castaño exploded, hurting Charlo with a hook, just as Charlo had done to him in the previous round. The numbers were all Castaño, who landed double digits in power shots. Another easy round to score. They gave it to Castaño, as did the 3 official judges.
We begin round 4. The plot thickens here in San Antonio, Texas.
And that was great for Castaño. He took advantage of that opportunity that Jermell gave him. He really gave him that opportunity. He got himself on the rope. He covered. He tried to counter. He almost playing peekaboo, but he got caught with the left hand.
Oh, and Charlo eats that right hand to the body by Castaño as Charlo was trying to keep him at bay with the stick. Castaño able to close the distance.
Castaño has a sneaky right hand. It's not monstrously powerful, but it's a sneaky punch that can get in from time to time.
And we talked about the only way, and that is the only way Castaño can win this fight, is being aggressive, being in Charlo's chest, right there, right inside. Did not give Charlo enough space to counterpunch.
Charlo along the ropes. Castaño with that left hook blocked by Charlo. Charlo moving to his left, now planting his feet.
Castaño doing a good job of cutting the ring off there on Charlo and keeping him in a certain spot. Well, you just feel
there's that jab left hook behind the guard.
You can feel the wheels turning in Jermell Charlo's head, looking for the opportunity to counter.
Midway point, Charlo with some leverage on those punches. There's a sweeping left hook by Charlo.
And this was happening right now, guys. Castaño's already took Charlo's best punch, which is the hook. And he said, well, yeah, I took it. I almost, you know.
Oh, and there, Castaño lands a right on Charlo.
And he hurt Charlo as well. So now he knows that once he gets in, he lands his combinations, he can do damage as well.
Final minute of the 4th. They tee off on each other. Castaño comes back now. There's a left hook to the body, a right, and another left hook that clipped the jaw of Jermell Charlo.
This is the work Castaño is capable of, and it's probably winning him this round.
And there Charlo with the right hand behind the guard before Castaño fires back.
And he's known to do this all fight, all rounds.
It was a anticipated styles clash coming into this momentous matchup. Castaño has Charlo in the corner, unloads the left to right. There's a cuffing left hook by Charlo. Good stuff through 4 rounds.
In scoring a round, you often have to measure one fighter's jabs versus the other's power shots. In the 4th, Charlo started quickly, but some of his punches were blocked. Charlo did connect cleanly with a 1-2, as well as a 3-punch combination. But I thought Castaño edged the round with a power right and a combination very late in the round. In jabs connected, CompuBox had Charlo ahead by 5-0. But in power shots connected, Castaño was in front by 23-6. I gave the 4th to Castaño, as did Cheatham and Weisfeld. Vasquez scored for Charlo.
If you get too close, you smother that, all right? Seconds out! Smother that, all right? You're giving rounds away, Jay.
We heard Derek James telling Jermell he's giving rounds away. That's been a common theme throughout his career, and yet again that power has been the great equalizer, as Charlo going to try to continue to snipe at distance, utilizing the jab, but Castaño, of course, will try to close the distance and utilize his 2-fisted attack.
The other thing he didn't like, Derek James, was that Charlo went to the ropes, and he wants to keep him in the center of the ring.
And that's something that happened when he fought Harrison the first time. He gave a lot of rounds. He stood on the ropes, and he paid dearly. I mean, the fight was close, but right now, it's a really important fight. He's got to change it, keep jabbing, stay in control.
One of the punches he didn't throw when he was on the ropes was the uppercut, and that is a punch that Charlo may work into this.
Definitely set up a trap. Good for Castaño to get in.
Castaño high guard feinting, utilizing lateral movement. Charlo unloads the 1-2, but then it's Castaño's lead right that scored. And the cuffing left hook before receiving a 1-2 through the guard from Charlo.
Charlo steadfastly not getting near the ropes, and when he does get near the ropes, he fights his way out or moves his way out. And that's the difference here for him. That's why he's doing a little bit better, although he's taking a couple of right hands. Castaño, you saw, landing 40% so far of his power punches, everything other than the jab. That's, where he wants to be.
Charlo wanting to bait Castaño, hoping to counter. Under a minute left in the 5th. Pawing at him with the jab. There's a sharp jab to the body by Castaño.
Both fighters really looking for something. Jermell obviously keeping his eye on the guard, waiting for Castaño to make a mistake, make him pay with the right hand coming in, or the uppercut that we have not seen yet. And Castaño has to pressure a little bit more. Work the body. You're in there. Break him down.
Right in that spot there is where Charlo was getting himself on the ropes. He didn't in that instance.
Yes.
And that's where Castaño's having problems in this round.
And once he lands that body shot, Castaño's that right body shot, he gets the attention of Charlo.
Counter attack by Castaño, unloading on Charlo. Charlo double pumps the jab, right hand. There's a left uppercut that missed for Charlo. Good head movement along the ropes.
Really solid round.
In the 5th, Charlo's ring generalship was unmistakable. He won the round just as much for what he prevented Castaño from doing as for what he did himself. This time it was Charlo blocking punches. His defensive movement was superb, and he stayed off the ropes. Castaño again landed late, but this time Charlo answered back. The power punch numbers pointed to Castaño, but this time the numbers were deceiving. I scored for Charlo, as did all 3 official judges.
You win the early rounds, you're trying to win the last 10 seconds. You got to back him down, back him up with the jab.
Trainer Derek James wants Charlo to back him up with the jab, and he starts the round by pumping the jab. Didn't see a lot of the jab in the last round.
And we know that he's got a power jab. You know, he dropped.
Yeah. He stopped.
He stopped
Jason Rosario.
So it's not just the, you know, setup jab. It's a power jab. So he definitely can back up Castaño with that jab.
You know, Castaño has only thrown about 30 more punches, 20-some more punches than Charlo. That isn't where he wants to be in terms of volume, even though he has had very good moments in this fight and won several rounds, probably by the admission of Derek James.
And while it's just a barometer, Al, show stats indicate that Castaño throwing more and landing more than Charlo. But this is, again, a theme that we've seen throughout Charlo's career.
Right. It happens early, and then he oftentimes gets a fighter hurt and changes the whole dynamic. And these rounds, some of these rounds very close, and, you know, we'll see.
A minute gone here in the 6th. And Charlo unable to cut off the ring as Castaño able to continue to move laterally.
And doing exactly as he was told. Back up Castaño, keep him in his back foot, keep the jab going.
Yeah, strategically, that has worked perfectly in this round.
Castaño manages to snipe a jab, but eats 2 punches, make that 3 through the guard. Now Castaño marching forward, misses with the left hook, counter shot lands for Charlo. Fans on their feet anticipating sustained two-way action as Charlo goes to the body. Right hand by Castaño.
That's exactly what you have to do if you're Castaño. If you're going to take punches, hey, but you'll get your own also, and you might hurt Jermell.
Charlo did a better job there of countering and then getting off the ropes.
And definitely not the output we're used to seeing from Castaño, despite the fact that he is definitely throwing more, but not at the rate we're used to seeing. I think that's a testament to the power of Jermell Charlo.
That, and it's not so easy getting inside because Jermell has a great jab. He knows how to do it. He goes back. Now he's on the ropes, but he always finds a way to turn him.
We've seen many volume punches become less volume punches against certain opposition.
And now it's Charlo pumping up the volume with 30 seconds left in the 6th before Castaño comes back with a flurry of his own.
And those are the opportunities we're talking about. Jermell stops throwing the jab. He gives you the opportunity to get in. You close the gap, and you throw punches, Castaño.
And you know Charlo's going to hear from his trainer, Derek James, about the languishing on the ropes and eating shots like this from Brian Castaño. Missing with that right hand.
This was a tough round to score. For the first half, Castaño did next to nothing. The round's first exchange went to Charlo, but then Castaño, again rallying late in the round, scored strongly. By a slim margin, I gave Castaño this round. He was again out-jabbed, but his power shots won me over. This was most definitely a swing round. There's no arguing that at the halfway mark, Charlo-Castaño was a close fight. The tactics had been plain to see. Charlo wanted to box from a distance and emphasize his jab. Castaño wanted to block that jab with a high guard and pin Charlo to the ropes, where he intended to land heavy combinations. Jabs? Castaño wasn't bothering. Through 6 rounds, he had landed only 6 of them. Charlo was most effective when Castaño turned aggressor, but that happened only occasionally. It seemed that whichever fighter initiated the action, the other gained an edge. Clearly, this fight would be won over the second half, if not down the stretch. Unofficially, I had Castaño ahead by 58-56, the same as Steve Weisfeld. Tim Cheatham had it even at 57-57, and Nelson Vasquez had Charlo comfortably ahead at 59-55, having given Castaño only round 3.
We are beginning the second half of this historic main event. Attempting to crown the first undisputed male 154-pound champion in the 4-belt era. Brian Castaño Castaño holds one of the belts. Jermell Charlo holds 3 of them. At the midway point, let's bring in our unofficial scorer, Steve Farhood.
Mo, it's a difference in styles, which makes it very interesting to score. When very little is happening, I think Charlo has a big advantage because his jab becomes the dominant punch. What the judges are going to have to decide is that jab piercing through the high guard of Castaño, or is it being blocked? If it's piercing through, then Charlo's going to win his share of rounds. But when Castaño punches in combination, he's been very effective. I have Castaño ahead, 58-56.
Well, the jab was able to pierce through there a few times, but Castaño now returning fire and forcing Charlo on his back foot.
Castaño getting in closer where he wants to be. He's finding his way inside by moving, closing the gap, closing the distance. And he lets his hands go. He's really effective when he does that.
And that jab scores for Charlo, splits the guard.
Charlo hasn't allowed himself, though, to really be cornered on the ropes in this round or some parts of the last round, and that's important for him. Total punches, you take a look, and you know, Castaño wanted more volume, but he is landing more punches according to show stats. Now, it's where those punches are placed per round. Some will argue, you know, what ones are effective, but it's a very competitive and interesting fight.
Couple of right hands land for Castaño, forcing Charlo to exit. Retreat, try to establish the jab. Avoids that. Left hook on the ropes. Pivots and then goes to the body with a rare left hook up. For Jermell Charlo, less than 20% of his attack is to the body.
Yeah, he's not a body puncher. You know, Castaño's not jabbing his way in. That's one thing he needs to do more of, although there he got in without it.
Chopping right hand by Castaño. Left hook to the liver by Castaño, scores.
The reason he's not jabbing his way in is because he's waiting for Charlo to throw the jab to counter on top, just as he did.
But as he waits, it allows Charlo then to split that guard with a short left hand like we just saw.
Good work on the inside there by Castaño.
Leads with the right hand and scores as Charlo again along the ropes.
Is Charlo giving him this round by languishing on the ropes?
Castaño continues to march forward as we head to round number 8.
If you thought Castaño did enough to win this fight, the 7th provided solid evidence. The action followed the fight's theme. Castaño did almost nothing early, then let loose late in the round to win it. Castaño began with the right hand, and Charlo countered with slick defense and purposeful movement. 2 flurries sealed the round for Castaño, as he yet again finished strongly over the final 15 seconds. Castaño threw 66 punches in the 7th, which would hold up as his high for the fight. I scored for Castaño, as did all 3 official judges. That put him ahead, albeit barely, on the cards.
For the 2nd consecutive round, Derek James telling Charlo he wants him to use the jab and then follow up with a left hook. And then the right, and then go to the body. And so we'll see if Charlo is able to implement the adjustments that his trainer would like him to make. You know, in many ways, Charlo, similar to Deontay Wilder, no matter how many rounds they may lose, they believe in that power. And if there's any time left, they feel they're still in it.
And so many of these rounds pretty close.
Yes.
So this fight could be going in a bunch of different directions.
And according to our unofficial score, Steve Farhood, he has Castaño now up by 3 points. As Castaño scored with a short left hook on the inside upstairs.
Castaño used, see, there's the
beautiful
jab.
Right hand and the left hook.
Remember when Castaño was hurt so badly in round 2 with that left hook? And I'll tell you, nice right by Castaño. It looked like this fight was not going to be a long one, and he's hanging in there, boy, isn't he?
Charlo's left hook In that second round, stunning Castaño. Castaño scored with a left of his hook of his own in round 3, and here we are now midway through the 8th round, scheduled for 12 to determine an undisputed champion at 154 pounds.
And you can see Charlo is somehow, I want to say, shocked that, you know, Castaño's taking these shots and walking right through him and being effective inside. I know he was expecting this fight, but once you have it and it's there in your face, it's a game changer.
Castaño just landed with a left to the head.
And there's the jab of Castaño. I think that is such an important weapon for him.
There was a nice...
He only lands a little over 2 a round, but he uses it as a rangefinder.
And I gotta say, Charlo's landed a nice left hook to the body, but then Castaño comes back upstairs. 45 seconds left here in the 8th. And Charlo has to be more of an uptick in his offense. We know about his low output, explosive power.
And we know of his power too. He's capable of turning the fight around in one punch. But Castaño's getting the best of him right now because of the output, the volume punching.
Charlo with the jab, but doesn't follow up with the left hook or the right hand. It's pot-shotting with the jab here in the final seconds of the 8th. Follows up with a right there. A good round for Brian Castaño.
Like the 6th, the 8th was difficult to score. Charlo was busier, and of course he landed more jabs. The bigger punches, as few as there might have been, were scored by Castaño. One of those punches was a Castaño right, though he missed his follow-up shots. A short time later, Castaño again zeroed in with his right. Charlo finished the round with crisp jabs, but was it enough? In the 8th, Castaño scored with 48% of his power shots. That's a very high percentage. I scored for Castaño, the 3rd consecutive round he had earned on my unofficial card. Judges Cheatham and Weisfeld agreed. Once again, Vasquez saw it differently, scoring for Charlo.
Castaño's 57-year-old father, Carlos, issuing instructions in between rounds as we begin round number 9. Brian Castaño has been very calm, cool, and collected throughout this entire experience, leading to what is the biggest fight of both of their careers, but he has definitely not been swallowed up by the magnitude of the moment.
Definitely not. In this round, I think Charlo has to change the tempo. We know that Castaño is going to try to come in again, volume punching, but Charlo has to be more of a volume puncher himself. Throw more than just a jab, or if you touch with the jab, let your right hand go.
Opponents normally land 7.8 rounds per punches per round against Charlo. Castaño, according to show stats, is landing 14 per round, so he has upticked that, and that's pretty significant.
Oh, Castaño just underneath that sweeping left hook from Charlo. A minute gone here in the 9th, but Charlo still on his back foot and very much unable to, or not unwilling to pull the trigger. But again, it's the pressure of Castaño.
And we still have not yet seen the uppercut from Jermell, I'm sorry. The sneaky, short uppercut that he usually sets up, especially against aggressive fighters like Castaño.
Yeah, I'm surprised that punch hasn't come to bear. Now in this round, Castaño's not landing that much, but he's pushing.
He's doubling up.
Yeah, he's pushing, and you see overall, overall it's a big edge, more than an edge.
The chasm.
Yeah.
There's the jab.
There's a jab, and it was a stiff one, and it popped Castaño's head back, but Castaño continues to march forward. Charlo on the ropes. Castaño with some blistering combinations. And Charlo rolling with the punches.
Yeah, they're not all getting there, but some are getting through, and Castaño's throwing more when he has them in position to land those punches.
Well, guess what? He's making a fight.
Yeah, he's making the fight,
And the judges might be seeing that.
Well, Steve Farhood sees it as that right hand momentarily stopped Charlo in his tracks.
The right hand of Castaño's been better than I think the Charlo people would have thought.
Charlo's only been down once. A right hand back in May of 2014 against Charlie Bellamy. There's a right block by Castaño. Castaño bobbing underneath. Pot-shotting with the jab as Charlo. Castaño closes the distance. Doesn't score a lot, but still manages to get to the body.
Well, you can't discourage Brian Castaño, can you?
Again, Castaño was the aggressor. Again, he threw more power shots. And again, he finished with a rush. And I gave the round to Charlo. Castaño scored with a combination early, and Charlo answered with some effective jabs. It was a back-and-forth round. Charlo mixed his punches and blocked or slipped a lot of those that came back at him. As he had done in virtually every round, Castaño finished strongly, and that might have won over the judges. The punch stats point to Charlo. It was the first round since the second that he landed more punches than Castaño. Unofficially, I scored round 9 for Charlo. The 3 official judges all saw it for Castaño. That put him comfortably ahead on 2 of the 3 cards with only 3 rounds to go.
An aggressive Brian Castaño putting Jermell Charlo. He's under pressure here beginning round number 10.
And we talked about in the opening, Castaño coming in with the confidence, you know, into this fight.
But what about the adjustments, though, for Charlo? We listened to what Derek James says. It makes sense. It's great advice. He's been unable to really implement it, and now beginning to open up a bit with his right hand. But
it happens in fights sometimes. You know,
there's been a lull.
Sometimes you just can't pull the trigger for some reason. You overtrain. You didn't train well enough. You're overthinking it, and I think that's what Charlo's doing. He's overthinking too much. He's got to let his hands go a little bit more.
Well, James told Charlo that he was losing, and Charlo was incredulous. Couldn't believe it.
And we talked about the pressure that was on Castaño, but the pressure that is on Charlo, you know, fighting in his hometown.
Well, Castaño said it would be he's the one under pressure.
Exactly.
Castaño's an underdog, but he's proven to be a live dog.
So it could be that as well, the pressure for Charlo.
Oh, that left hook upstairs lands for Castaño. Right hand clips the jaw. Now Charlo sitting down and marching forward. Missing with a lot of those punches, but
he hurt Castaño. He pushed him back and he hurt him, but he needs to get after him. In round 2, he didn't do that.
And it's the right hand that Mo talked about.
And there's another right hand that hurt him. Left hook upstairs, left hook to the body, and almost on cue, Jermell Charlo beginning to put a show on here in the 10th. Trying to implement his will and skill and power on Castaño, who's forced to retreat. Now Castaño doing a little showboating, a little shuffling.
And Castaño does not fight this way. It's not who he is, so this is not
he survived
by nature to him.
Under a minute left in the 10th, Castaño.
He's trying to survive.
Yep, trying to weather the storm like a parka. And buying himself some time. Oh, left hook. Clip the jaw, Castaño.
Castaño tried to land the hook. He's going to have to do something offensively to keep Charlo off him.
And he almost tried. Yeah, you saw that. He missed.
Another right hand lands for Charlo. Another one. By far the best round of the fight for Jermell Charlo. Here with 10 seconds left in the 10th. Charlo continues to unload on Castaño. But Castaño biting down and standing in front of Charlo. What a fight.
A really good fight doesn't let the fighters, or the viewers for that matter, get too comfortable. And that was exactly the case in round 10 of Charlo Castaño. This time when Castaño drove in a hook, Charlo came right back. And not long after, Charlo hurt Castaño, who was forced to hold on. The remainder of the round was more Charlo. And in this round, it was Charlo who closed the round big time, with Castaño reduced to survival mode. In this pivotal 10th, Charlo landed more power shots than Castaño for only the second time in any round, and he did so by a wide margin. I scored for Charlo, as did the 3 official judges. But what's interesting is that Weisfeld scored the round 10-8 for Charlo, even though there had been no knockdown. While I scored a 10-9 for Charlo, I can't really argue with Weisfeld's decision. That's how dominant Charlo had been. As it turned out, Weisfeld's scoring of 10-8 instead of 10-9 did not affect the ultimate outcome on his card. Regardless, the Charlo comeback had begun.
The championship rounds for this historic main event. Who will become the first undisputed 154-pound champion in the 4-belt era? The best against the best. Charlo versus Castaño, round 11.
Normally Castaño is a big finisher, but not when he's hurt like this. Against Teixeira, he landed 55 punches per round in the last 2 rounds, but he's not the same Castaño right now in this fight.
Charlo is looking for the big finish here in round 11, and he may very well need the knockout to win this fight.
Or at least a knockdown.
Yes, Charlo's broke though. Ever since that last round, that right hand, he's broke. Now he's looking like himself.
And he's listening to his trainer, doubling up with the left hand, left hook to the body, left hook upstairs.
Now Castaño, I know he's a bit hurt. I don't know if he's, I think he got himself back. He has to go back to being an aggressive fighter.
And he lands a right and a left.
There it is. Get your respect back. That's what you have to do if you're Castaño.
Just past the midpoint of the 11th. Charlo on the ropes. That left hook by Castaño bounced off Charlo's glove. Charlo closing in on Castaño on Steve Farhood's unofficial scorecard. That jab popped Charlo's head back.
Charlo has not been active in this round, only 15 punches. Not many more from Castaño, but Castaño now is really getting his offense going.
Going back to what really got him into this fight, the pressure.
Under a minute left here in the penultimate round. Charlo ready to unload that missile-like right hand. It's trying to keep Castaño away with the jab. Castaño closing the distance, unable to get on track.
And referee coming in pretty quickly, and Charlo did a good job there. Just hold him just a little bit to make that break.
Late left hook, right hand by Castaño. Charlo firing back. Left uppercut, there's the uppercut, but back comes Castaño. Championship pedigree. Championship heart on display in San Antonio.
Charlo wanted, and maybe even needed, the start of round 11 to be a continuation of the 10th. And indeed, it was. Castaño rebounded in spots and began to re-establish his forward motion. But a telltale sign that the fight had shifted came when Charlo was moved to the ropes and Castaño failed to at least try and capitalize. As was the case in the 10th, Charlo punctuated the round convincingly. Who won the round? The power punch numbers said Castaño. The action said Charlo. I gave it to Charlo, as did all 3 official judges. Now Charlo had closed the gap on the cards of Cheatham and Weisfeld. Still, assuming the 12th would go 10-9 one way or the other, the best Charlo could hope for was a draw.
Listen, when he shoots shots, he don't throw nothing. You catch it.
High drama in the Charlo corner. Derek James letting Jermell Jermell Charlo, no, you need the knockout. 12th and final round underway.
And whether he really believes that, whether it's really true, he wants his man to be aggressive. So that may have been gamesmanship or whatever it is. He knows Charlo needs to be aggressive in this last round.
Final 3 minutes of this momentous main event on the cusp of crowning the first undisputed champion at 154. Highly competitive, as we expected, between the two best fighters in this division.
This is going to be a really interesting round for both. Castaño just has to go back to what he was doing. Pressure Charlo, overwhelm him. But Charlo, look for the openings. Look for the right spot.
If Charlo can do this and stay off the ropes, he can win this last round. Now, is that enough for him to win the fight?
It could very well come down to who takes the 12th, and it's Charlo beginning to utilize the jab. Castaño, high guard, standing right in front of Charlo, trying to get close, trying to get to the body. Oh, goes upstairs with the overhand right. Does Castaño.
A lot of pressure, guys. So much at stake. And it's all in this round for, I think, for Charlo.
And you can feel it in this building. Charlo's done a very good job early in this round, though, of landing the jab and some things behind it. But here comes Castaño trying to close the distance. Oh, my.
That left hook by Castaño. Clip Charlo fired back with a right hand.
And you got to give it to Castaño. He's so disciplined with the pressure. He's not just lunging in, throwing punches. No. He's high guard up. He's waiting for the right moment. On top of the jab sometimes, overhand right. And then he cuts a ring and he's inside already.
Final minute of tonight's main event. And Charlo unloading on Castaño. Castaño coming back.
Still a close round.
I think Charlo's landed the better punches, though, this round and done the better work. But here comes Castaño with a beautiful double left hook. Is there enough time for him to close the gap in this round? Oh, nice body work by Castaño.
According to show stats, Brian Castaño has landed more punches on Jermell Charlo than any of Charlo's previous opponents. As we come down the stretch, he gets tagged with a left hook. We remember the Alamo. We will remember Saturday, July 17, 2021 in San Antonio. Undisputed championship at 154 at stake.
What a fight.
Gladiators worthy of the opportunity to become the first ever undisputed champion. Their wives looking on. Both of them feel their man did enough.
What was most impressive to me about the final round was that Charlo's jab was as fast and crisp as it had been in round one. He started the 12th quickly and effectively, and while Castaño had his moments, Charlo's counterhook was the biggest single punch of the round. A heavy exchange favored Charlo, but Castaño came back with some big hooks. When he landed to the body, it was a reminder of the fact that he hadn't been particularly dedicated to body punching in earlier rounds. As was fitting for a fight of this magnitude, the champions finished in a robust exchange. And as hard as Charlo and Castaño had fought, the outcome was going to be decided by the judges. Charlo landed more jabs in the 12th than in any other round, and he came close to matching Castaño in power punch connects. I scored for Charlo, as did the three official judges. Charlo won the last 3 rounds on all 3 cards, but it came as no surprise that the decision was very close.
The decision is a split decision draw.
The final tally revealed a split draw, with Cheatham scoring 114-114, Vasquez having it wide for Charlo at 117-111, and Weisfeld favoring Castaño by 114-113. The judges agreed on 8 of the 12 rounds. Of those 8 rounds, I agreed with them on 7. Unofficially, I had it 114-114, a draw. The CompuBox numbers saw Charlo landing way more jabs and Castaño landing way more power punches. In terms of scoring, of course, each round is viewed as an entity by itself. The exercise of scoring a fight is far more subjective than a lot of fans and insiders want to acknowledge. And Charlo Castaño is proof of just that. The fact that a judge as experienced as Nelson Vasquez could score for Charlo by 6 points, and a judge as experienced as Steve Weisfeld could score for Castaño by 1 point, shouldn't surprise anybody. I've often said that the most difficult fights to score are the ones in which the fighters are trying to do very different things, and are using different methods and strategies in order to do so. In this fight, Charlo was cast as the boxer, but he showed the one-punch power to hurt Castaño. And Castaño was cast as the pressure fighter, but at times he showed the patience and ability to fight cleverly at range. In terms of action and flow, Charlo Castaño was a very good fight. Add the stakes, the quality of the boxing, and the fact that all along you sensed the difference on the cards could be only a round or two, and the fight was elevated even further. And the best news of all, on May 14th, Charlo and Castaño are going to do it again in a second effort to crown an undisputed champion at 154 pounds. Maybe Charlo Castaño 2 will resemble the first fight. Maybe it'll be drastically different. That's the way it often is with rematches. Either way, be sure that again, it'll be a highlight of the boxing year.